Hi, welcome to Box on the Box, Rock and Celluloid, Bop for short. I'm with Box. Got a bit of rock for you today. It's a review of the third album by Lynch. So this is a project put out by Frontiers Records, the Italian label, and it features Michael Sweet of Striper fame on vocals and George Lynch of Dokken fame on guitar, two stellar musicians who made their names in the 80s. So this is what Frontiers Record does. Originally it started out kind of licensing albums that were released by other labels in Europe. Then it kind of developed its own roster, and then it really found its niche in getting and signing bands that had been big in the 80s. So you've got Winger on there, Whitesnake put out an album, Def Leppard, Toto, and so on. Striper put out albums on there, and so forth. But the other thing it does is puts these projects together. So it's probably its most successful kind of super group. Well, one of them is the Wet, which features Jessica Soto, guys from Eclipse, and so on, and Work of Art. They're pretty good. And then it's got Revolution Saints, which is another project, which was Jack Blades, Dean Casanova and Doug Aldridge. That's changed recently to Jeff Pilson and Joel Hoekstra. So often they do this, they bring in different singers into projects and so on. So there's a criticism that there's too much of this stuff and sometimes it doesn't work. There was a project a while ago, not that long ago, with Billy Sheehan and Brad Gillis, which really didn't work to me. But Lynch, I do think, is a really solid proposition. Their first album, Only to Rise, which I think came out about 2014, had some really, or maybe it was 2016, apologies, had some really good tunes on, a good blend with Michael Sweet's powerful sort of operatic style and Lynch's guitar. The follow-up, Unified, which came out 2019, wasn't as good, but it still has some solid tracks on it. So this is their new album, Heart and Sacrifice. So it opens up with the title track, 3 minutes 22 seconds, which is a really strong opener. It's up-tempo, pounding rhythm. Sweet, I'll just look at my notes. He's got a mega metal scream, that's one thing I'll put. So Michael Sweet's in that rare group of singers. He can still sing like he did back in the 80s. Actually, I'd maybe argue he's better. He's got amazing control over his high level screams. He's still got a lot of aggression. I haven't always liked his tone. I've always found his kind of delivery, especially when he ballads, he's a bit like Dennis DeYoung of Styx, and now that works for that kind of music, but not for heavier stuff. But you know, it's really good. I think people forget that Striper actually were a heavy band, you know, in amongst all the bouffant hair and Christian lyrics and so on. The To Hell with the Devil album and other albums do have some like really heavy riffing, some strong Maiden gallops and stuff like that. So he acquits himself amazing on this. And George is sounding pretty good on this. Unfortunately, he's got the phaser on the first solo. Something I just haven't got the grips with George Lynch is why he feels the need to use a phaser. He's a guitarist with tone in his fingers who can shape notes at will with harmonic overlays and so on. Vibrato, sliding vibrato, any kind of effect like a phaser or wah-wah will take away your natural tone and you have to give over to the effect, in my opinion. I'm not as into that, but he does a cool break on it. So it's a really good opener. I really like it. I should just say another project that's good on Frontiers is Iconic. Michael Sweet plays on that with Nathan Jameson, Joel Hoekstra, Tom Aldridge. I think, is it Rudy Zazo? That is really good. So the next track is Where I Have to Go. This is another really strong track. It's got a classic Lynch riff using a tritone. People will know that's the flat 5. Goes all the way back to When Heaven Comes Down, and he's kind of used it ever since, but he seems to have managed to kind of keep it fresh each time. Some really cool lead on this as well, so excellent. And then the third track is Miracle. So this was a single with a video. It's kind of grown on with this track, and I do think it's a really strong track. Again, really good lead on this at the end. George does a really cool outro melody. It's really classic George, if you hear it. I kind of find he's kind of using a more liquidy tone, more middly, songs I prefer more bite, more under lock and key. I think a lot of people like with George, with songs we just want him to plug into a Marshall and stick an overdrive pedal on. But anyway, really good first three tracks, and both Michael Sweet and George Lynch, are really bringing it. Track 4 is Leaving All Behind. This is another single they released. I like this track, kind of 6 out of 10. I don't think it's great, but it's good. So it's still keeping up a good standard. And then track 5 is You'll Never Be Alone. So this was the opening single off the album. It's got quite a strange guitar sound at the start, quite gnarly, but that kind of settles down. And when it comes in, it has got a really kind of grinding groove to this. I really like it. Very good chorus. Quite interesting to hear the bass on the verse on this. Sometimes the bass is a little lost on the album. But it kind of means business, this track. This was a really good track to put out as the first track off the album. It was a good statement of intent, and it was kind of keeping up with the track. I mentioned the first album, which was Only to Rise. I had a track called Dying Rose on it, and that was a lead-off cut off that album as well. This is actually, really good. It's not just two guys picking up a check or whatever. So that's a really strong opening. Then the track 6 is After All Is Said and Done. This is just it's sort of a power ballad. I'm not massively into this. I've listened to this album about half a dozen times. Obviously I prefer to listen to it more, so it really get into it. But obviously we're trying to get these reviews out in a reasonable time for people who might want to buy it. So I'm not so keen on that. Then track 7, getting back up to standards, called Give Up the Night. Just looking at notes. This opens with an insane metal scream and finishes with one. I think it might be the highest scream Michael Sweet manages on the album. Drops down really cool in the verse, and it's got, I think, the best solos on the album. Excellent middle solo, excellent end solo. I think this is some of George's best. I do feel he's been playing better recently. I think the last End Machine album had an exceptional solo on the lead-off cut off that, and there were some cool solos on the previous End Machine album. I think they got on Frontiers as well. Again, another good project. I've got to say, I think George, sometimes it kind of feels like he's doing too much, but at the moment he's got the End Machine, he's got Sweet Lynch, and he's probably doing something with Lynch Mob. He did the thing Dirty Shirley, but that which is quite good. But that I think Dino Jazulik's fallen out of Frontiers Records. But anyway, I do like what George is doing. It's not up there with Doc and Lynch Mob, but it's solid. He's doing good, and Michael Sweet, his latest Striper stuff, iconic, and this, they're both kind of selected good things here. So yeah, this track's really good. Track 8 is the new single, Will It Ever Change. This has got a really heavy, gnarly riff. I was impressed with this track. A kind of weird solo, but actually it works pretty cool. Just looking at, it's a good hook, an unusual kind of hook at the end of the chorus on this. So that's really, the album kind of starts to tail off after that, but I do like It's Time to Believe is track 9. It's got a 12/8 groove, catchy chorus, cool solo on that as well. And then track 10 is called Every Day. So it's got a poppy riff. At first I was like, I'm not into this, but kind of last listen was like, actually it's got a good hook, so I quite like it. But the last 2 tracks, It Rains Again and World Full of Lies, don't do much for me. I think it's that thing is, these days albums have to have 12, they have to have 11 or 12 tracks. This would really benefit from, just losing a couple. So you could lose the last track, or the I think the last track's a ballad, so you could pick the best ballad. This is just my viewpoint. But with the streaming era, obviously every track's monetized. So, it's to artist's advantage to get as much tracks out there, because even if the song doesn't get streamed that much, it will generate some income, and labels are like that. So streaming doesn't pay shit, but it always pays. That's the thing. The weird thing of an album is that in the old days it weren't perpetually monetized. Once the album came out and people bought it, that was it. Unless you've got some amazing catalogue seller, and it's reissued, and you do get stuff like that. But so overall the album, I think I'm going to give it 6.5 out of 10. I think it starts strongly. I just think it kind of tails off a little at the end. So they haven't made a great album to me, Sweet Lynch, but I think this is up there with the first album, probably better than the second. But I do think they're producing enough tracks on their albums to kind of warrant checking out and listening. And like I say, I think it's good that George and Michael Sweet have found something that works. I think they're obviously happy together. And if you check out one of the videos, I forget which one it is, George did a great tribute to Van Halen guitar with like red, white and yellow stripes on, which I love. Just a minor point there. But yeah, so that's my review of Sweet Lynch Heart and Sacrifice. Summing up, solid record, some really good tracks on it. Could be more consistent, but the Sweet Lynch machine rolls on, producing good quality music and some great singing and great playing from elder statesmen of 80s rock. Cool. So remember, share and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks very much. Cheers.